Hey, Soul Stories fam! We're about to begin a brand new love journey. Please comment on where you're watching from so we can see that our Soul Stories family is all around the world. The Brooklyn afternoon rain drummed softly against the windows, blurring the row of streetlights in the distance. Brandon Evans pulled up the collar of his coat and hurried through the crowd toward a small cafe on the corner. A tilted wooden sign hung above the door, handwritten with the words, "Coffee and Heart. Coffee for those whose hearts are a little offbeat." He chuckled. Either terrible marketing or pure genius, he thought, pushing the door open. The bell over the door chimed. Warm air wrapped around him, filled with the scent of cinnamon and espresso. Golden light glowed across the faces of customers, hidden behind laptops and white porcelain cups. Brandon, dressed in a dark gray suit, a rare sight in this neighborhood, suddenly felt as if he'd stepped out of the world of stocks and contracts. A clear voice called from behind the counter. "Hey there, you look like someone who needs caffeine, urgently." The girl behind the espresso machine had loosely tied brown hair, with a few strands falling over the collar of her worn denim jacket. Her name tag was pinned crookedly and slightly misspelled. Maya. Brandon raised a brow, lips curving. "Maya, huh?" She shrugged without looking up. "The company printed it wrong. I thought about fixing it, but then I figured, it fits, like a typo version of my life." He laughed, a sound so unfamiliar it startled even him. She looked up, eyes glinting playfully. "So, what'll it be?" "Let me guess. Cappuccino with cinnamon, for people stressed out over money or love." "Both," he replied, half joking, half serious. "Oh, then you'll need a large one." She turned around quickly, her movements smooth and practiced. Yet between the hiss of steam and the rich scent of coffee, something about her made Brandon feel unexpectedly at ease. He'd spent 9 hours in meetings that morning arguing over a $200 million solar energy project, debating profits with 3 shareholders, and receiving 47 urgent emails from his assistant. But somehow, one silly remark from a coffee girl made him breathe a little easier. She set the cup down before him. The milk foam formed a crooked heart. "Abstract art," she said. "Don't judge." The milk frother's moody today. He eyed the cup, tapping a finger lightly against its rim. "What if I told you I'm very picky about coffee? Then I'd offer a refund, if you pay first." He laughed again, for the second time this year. "Do you always talk like that?" "Only to people who seem to be overthinking." Brandon glanced toward the window. The rain was falling harder now. 2 college students dashed past sharing one umbrella. He used to have rainy afternoons like that before meetings, and money consumed the rest of his life. Maya slid a napkin toward him. On it, she had doodled a coffee cup and scrawled a line. "They say if you're looking for a reason to stop, this is it." He raised an eyebrow. "A philosophy quote with the drink." She smiled. "No, just today's rainy day promotion." Brandon was quiet for a moment, then said softly, "I think I'll come back to see what you write on sunny days." "Hopefully on sunny days I'm not writing my resignation letter," she said dryly, turning back to the espresso machine. When he left, the rain had eased. The sidewalk shimmered with puddles. He turned back instinctively to look through the cafe window. She was smiling at another customer, golden light spilling over her hair like honey. He murmured, "Cappuccino with cinnamon, for people stressed about love." Exactly right. When his driver opened the car door, Brandon realized he hadn't left a place feeling this reluctant in a long time. He pulled the napkin from his pocket, reread the scrawled words, and, for the first time in months, smiled for no reason at all. That night, amid Brandon Evans's packed calendar, CEO of Evans Tech, a new handwritten note appeared. 7:30 a.m. tomorrow. Coffee and heart, even if it doesn't rain. And a small line was added at the bottom. "They say caffeine is addictive. Maybe they've never met Maya." Tuesday morning. Brooklyn was still chilly, raindrops clinging to the wooden sign that read, "Coffee and Heart." Brandon Evans, now dressed in a gray hoodie, jeans, and impossibly clean white sneakers, walked into the cafe looking like a programmer who'd been up all night battling a bug he couldn't fix. No suit, no Patek watch, no Tesla, just Brandon, a man trying to learn how to live simply. "Good morning," Maya's voice came from behind the counter, carrying a smile that warmed the air a few degrees. He smiled slightly. Didn't think you'd remember your customers. Ordinary ones, no. But anyone who orders 3 cups in a row just because he's thinking about the world? That's hard to forget. He sat at his usual corner table, next to a small bookshelf with a handwritten sign. Borrow freely. If it's a good book, late returns forgiven. The napkin from the day before still lay on the table. Someone had scribbled underneath his old note. If you're looking for a reason to come back, today's coffee still has cinnamon. Maya set down a new cup, smiling with a hint of triumph. So, you came back. Was it for the coffee or the cinnamon? Maybe the barista. Did you just flirt with me using caffeine? I only invest in things that generate positive energy, Brandon replied, his tone so serious it made her laugh out loud. A regular at the next table, old Carl with silver hair and a sports newspaper, looked up and chimed in. So, what do you do for a living, son? Brandon shrugged. I invest in caffeine. Caffeine? That's a creative field. Yes, sir. I run experiments daily, Brandon said, taking a sip of his cappuccino, and Maya almost choked trying not to laugh. Leaning over the counter, she whispered, So what do you really do? I'm guessing IT engineer or a secret poet. Close. Which part? The secret part. Maya raised an eyebrow, then pulled out a small brown notebook from the drawer and tossed it lightly toward him. Then I'll name you Mr. Cappuccino. Anyone with a nickname is officially a regular. He opened the notebook and found pages filled with scribbles, poems, quotes, even bits of playful philosophy. One page read, If coffee were a person, who would it be? Underneath, Maya had written, Probably the warm type, but keeps you awake all night. He laughed. You're quite the philosopher. No, I just write simple things. People come here for coffee, but they stay for the stories. Want to add one? Brandon picked up a pen and wrote a short line. If coffee were a person, I'd have a serious addiction problem. Maya read it, chuckled, and grabbed a cup to wipe the counter, trying to hide the sparkle in her eyes. Coffee addicts aren't that bad, as long as they know when to stop. He looked at her, voice low. And if I don't want to stop, then don't. Just don't blame the cinnamon. Between all those silly lines, something genuine was growing. Brandon realized he'd never felt this at ease with anyone. No talk of stocks, projects, or corporate politics. Over the next few days, Brandon became something like the cafe's resident customer. Every morning, same gray hoodie, same corner seat, same cappuccino with extra cinnamon. Maya always had something new. One day she'd brew it Italian style, another day she'd sneak in a hint of vanilla to cure emotional coldness. He'd just smile, watching her move behind the counter, sometimes quietly helping her clear tables or wash cups when the shop was empty. Sometimes their hands brushed at the sink, just for a second, but enough to throw both hearts off rhythm. At night, when the streetlights cast golden reflections on the glass, Maya would rest her head on Brandon's shoulder, listening to the soft hum of the espresso machine. If you ever got rich one day, she asked softly, what's the first thing you'd do? Brandon tilted his head, eyes warm. Good question. What about you? I'd buy a new coffee machine, one that doesn't sound like a tractor. That's it? Maybe a plane ticket to visit my parents. He smiled, silent for a long time before murmuring, That sounds more valuable than any contract I've ever signed. What kind of contracts did you sign? She asked, curious. The boring kind, he said. Nothing is as interesting as making coffee. Maya laughed, her eyes reflecting in his. Close, calm, and bright. She had no idea that the man who helped her wipe tables and wash cups was Brandon Evans, multimillionaire CEO of Evans Tech, famously known as the investor who never smiles. Thursday morning. Sunlight streamed through the frosted glass of coffee and heart, scattering golden dust across the white porcelain cups. The cafe was busier than usual, a few students cramming for exams, a taxi driver dozing off over an Americano, and a small group of co-workers whispering about KPIs. Brandon sat in his usual corner, hoodie pulled low, hands wrapped around his cinnamon cappuccino, as if holding a warm secret. Right behind Maya hung a wall decorated with old magazine covers. In the center stood a glossy Forbes spread. Brandon Evans, the green billionaire who redefines energy. The light bounced off the shiny surface, making the half smile in the photo look dangerously charming. A young woman with a bob haircut and cat-eye glasses approached the counter to place her order. She looked up and froze, her finger pointed straight at the magazine cover. "Hey, doesn't that guy look exactly like him?" Brandon took a sip of his coffee and immediately spat it out through his nose. A perfect arc of cappuccino shot through the air before splattering onto a napkin. He coughed violently as the entire cafe turned to look. Maya jumped, then burst out laughing. "You okay, Mr. Cappuccino?" she teased, handing him another napkin while leaning over the counter to check. "I'm fine. Strong coffee today," Brandon muttered, mortified. The woman tilted her head, eyes darting between the Forbes cover and Brandon, as if playing a real-life game of spot the difference. Maya grinned. "If he's a millionaire, then I'm the Queen of England." The whole cafe erupted in laughter. Even the taxi driver snorted in his sleep. Brandon forced a weak smile, wiping his cup. In the magazine, the polished, suit-clad version of himself stared down at the hoodie-wearing imposter, looking guilty of cinnamon. Part of him wanted to stand up and give a TED Talk on renewable energy. The other 9 parts wanted to crawl into the coffee grinder. "One more cappuccino, please, sasha," the woman said, still grinning, "and tell His Majesty I said hi." "Yes, Your Majesty," Maya replied with an exaggerated bow. Brandon leaned back in his chair, trying to calm his heartbeat. When Maya set down a glass of water beside him, he murmured, "You really don't see the resemblance." Maya shrugged, her brown eyes sparkling. "Maybe. They both have a nose. That's about it. The guy on the cover's some polished billionaire. You're the guy who forgets his coffee lid every morning." He glanced at his open cup. No lid. Couldn't argue with that. For the rest of the morning, Brandon pretended the Forbes cover didn't exist. But every time Maya turned around, the glossy page behind her winked mockingly in the light. Customers whispered, "You think it's him?" "No way. Billionaires don't drink $2 coffee. Maybe he's doing market research." By noon, a light drizzle began to fall. Brandon stood up to pay, about to say something, but stopped. Maya caught that look and asked softly, "Will you be around this afternoon?" "Maybe," he said, his heart skipping a beat. Evening. Brooklyn's sky was sprinkled with quiet stars. At the red brick apartment building, the third-floor balcony glowed with strands of warm fairy lights. A few pots of mint released a sweet scent, and a wooden chair still bore the memory of 2 teacups from every night before. Maya poured tea, setting 1 cup at the empty spot. "You're 3 minutes late." The tea's offended. Brandon stepped outside, his breath turning silver in the cool air. He rested his hands on the iron railing. No more hiding. "I'm Brandon Evans." Maya blinked, tilting her head slightly. "Evans? As in Evans Tech?" He nodded slowly. "The guy in the magazine. The Green Investment Fund. All of it, that's me." Silence stretched thin as a violin string. The wind rustled the mint leaves, blending their scent with the rising steam of tea. Finally, Maya exhaled, half amused, half aching. "So you were testing me from the start?" "No," he said immediately, voice low, steady, real. "I just wanted to see if I could live like a normal person. No stocks, no boardrooms, no name that changes the way people talk to me. I wanted to know if, as a man in a hoodie holding a cinnamon coffee, I could still be seen for who I am." Maya leaned back against the wall, cradling her cup. Her voice softened. "You could have just asked." "I was afraid," Brandon admitted, swallowing hard. "Afraid of seeing that look again. The one that measures, doubts, calculates. I've lived so long in negotiations that I forgot how to trust." She smiled faintly, eyes down. "And I'm tired of always proving I'm sincere. The sad thing is, we both have our reasons." Brandon let out a quiet laugh, tinged with irony. "So the liar was me, pretending to be broke just to drink $2 coffee." "I'll give you this," Maya replied, grinning. "You're a great actor. Especially that scene this morning. Coffee coming out your nose? Oscar-worthy." They both laughed, the sound wrapping the night in a soft blanket. Somewhere, a subway train screeched and faded into the dark. "I'm sorry," Brandon said after a pause, voice almost a whisper, "for hiding it. Not because I didn't trust you, but because I was scared that if you knew, you'd see me differently." "Of course I'd see you differently," Maya said with a small, honest smile. "But different doesn't mean worse." She set her cup down and looked straight at him. "Starting tomorrow, if you go viral in my cafe, I'll print your face on hoodies and auction them off to buy a new milk frother." Brandon laughed, his eyes warm as honey. "Deal. As long as you keep my corner table reserved." A shooting star flashed across the sky, so fast they almost missed it. "You know," Maya whispered, "what annoys me most is that you never believed your version of ordinary was already beautiful." Brandon looked at her for a long moment. For the first time in years, his eyes held no defense. "You made me believe it," he said softly. "And, Maya, I love you." She froze for half a heartbeat, then smiled. Small, genuine, reaching all the way to her eyes. "Took you long enough to tell the truth," she murmured. He stepped closer. The space between them dissolved, breaths blending. Brandon leaned in and kissed her. Slow, tender, a promise written in mint tea and golden light. Below the balcony, the night city flowed on, and on the red brick third floor, two people held each other, steady in the quiet and in a beginning that no longer needed pretending. Their love had grown quietly, like summer drizzle followed by sunlight. No fireworks, no noise, just morning cappuccinos with cinnamon and balcony nights scented with mint, filled with hand-holding, embraces, and unhurried kisses. And so, 8 months passed. Brandon had memorized all of Maya's small quirks, always choosing the seat by the window, always marking her books with old train tickets, and always smiling whenever the cafe doorbell chimed, ting ting. One late afternoon, Maya walked in with a stack of books, eyes sparkling as if she'd just won the lottery. "My parents are flying in from the island," she blurted out, setting the books down. "You ready?" Brandon looked up from his laptop. The slanting sunlight glinted off his glasses, revealing a flicker of unease. But he clicked his pen cap and replied in his best CEO tone. "I've handled shareholder meetings before. How hard can this be?" Maya arched an eyebrow. "Shareholders don't ask about the time I fell into a pond and accidentally ate a snail." "Right. Then I'll prepare for the snail story too. And the language. My parents' language." Brandon blinked. "Ah." That night, Operation Meet the Parents officially launched. Brandon opened Google Translate, typed, "Hello, I'm Brandon," and hit play. The robotic voice spoke crisply. He immediately jotted down flashcards in yellow ink. "Hello, I'm Brandon. Nice to meet you. Cinnamon coffee." Maya pulled a chair across from him, her chin propped on her palm, watching the green investor practice pronunciation like a first grader. "Xin Chao," he read carefully. "Good," Maya nodded. "Chao LeBron John." Maya burst out laughing. "You just introduced yourself as Brand Dumb." "Not dumb. Doesn't Jan mean soft?" "No, it means dumb." Brandon rubbed his temples. "All right. Again." They switched to her parents' island dialect, a triple-level difficulty challenge with breathy consonants. Google Translate blared the audio. He mimicked it. "That one means hello," Maya explained. Brandon repeated it but swallowed a nasal tone. Maya nearly fell off her chair laughing. "You just said, 'I am a steamed fish.'" Brandon paused 3 long seconds, then wrote in his notebook, "Avoid nasal tones. Avoid steamed fish. Avoid all seafood." They continued. "How about nice to meet you?" he asked. Maya demonstrated, her voice soft like a sea breeze. Brandon echoed it, stretching the last vowel. She blinked. "You just said, 'Nice to meet the stove.'" He groaned. "So now I'm flirting with kitchen appliances?" "My stove is quite charming," she teased, "but maybe don't chat it up in front of my dad." They switched tactics. Maya wrote her own hilarious phonetic cheat sheet. "Hello equals Sin Chow, no fish. I'm Brandon equals Xiao Labranjan, no dumb. Nice to meet you equals Radhan Han, no actual falling. Thank you equals Camon, no rice bran." Brandon stuck Post-its all over the apartment, on the mirror, the kettle, the shoe cabinet. When he opened the fridge and saw "Come on," no rice bran, taped to the milk, he closed it again, wondering when his life had turned into a culinary experiment. Late that night, they practiced greetings. Maya played her mother. Brandon bowed 15 degrees, delivering his line in a voice trembling like crystal glass. "Not bad," she said. "Just no fish talk. I promise, no fish whatsoever." The next day, Brandon enlisted old Carl, the silver-haired regular, as pronunciation judge. "I've eaten steamed fish," Carl said gravely, "but never met a steamed son-in-law." Brandon buried his face in his hoodie, while Maya laughed so hard she cried behind the counter. 3 days before dinner, Brandon upgraded to mock interview mode. Maya sat upright, tone dropping an octave like a lawyer cross-examining. "Mr. Brandon, what are your future intentions with my daughter?" Brandon inhaled deeply. "Sir, I believe in renewable energy and, renewable love." "Hold up," Maya interrupted, giggling. "That sounds like you're swapping batteries for your heart." "Well, we could recharge daily." "Not a bad idea," she noted. "Recharge plan: 1 cappuccino every morning." The day of the dinner arrived. Brandon checked his list. Navy suit, slim tie, vocabulary, 4 greeting phrases, 1 prone to seafood disaster. Gifts: island tea plus cinnamon coffee beans. Offline Google Translate. Backup: before leaving, Maya adjusted his tie, closing the gap between them. The faint scent of cinnamon lingered on her jacket. "You okay?" "I'm confident, as long as I don't mention fish." "Then you're perfect," she smiled, eyes curling like crescent moons. Then softly, "My dad's strict, my mom can be sharp, but they've loved each other for 40 years with a practical kind of love that lasts. Just be yourself. Be yourself." Simple words that had taken Brandon 8 months to truly learn. The car came to a stop in front of the restaurant. Through the glass front, chandeliers shimmered like captured stars. The doorman opened the door, releasing the scent of butter and black pepper. Brandon paused and asked one last time, "The phrase for 'nice to meet you' was?" Maya repeated it slowly. He echoed, "Perfect. No stove, no fish." "Let's go," she said, squeezing his hand. Around her wrist gleamed a bracelet made of tiny shells, a keepsake from her island home. "Meet the parents." The carpeted hallway swallowed their footsteps. Soft jazz drifted beneath the wooden ceiling. At the far end waited a round table. 2 empty chairs, 2 familiar strangers, her mother's silver hair, her father's calm yet stern gaze. Maya exhaled, released his hand, and smiled as she walked forward. Brandon tightened his grip on the gift box, summoning every ounce of courage stored in 4 magic flashcards. He straightened his jacket and lifted his chin. Inside his head, the mantra looped. "Sin Chao, no fish. Chao la bran jan, no dumb. Rot han han, don't fall. Come on, no rice bran." He stepped into the golden-lit restaurant, navy suit gleaming, polite smile ready, and in his heart, a brave linguistic warrior armed with exactly 4 phrases, prepared to face destiny, and above all, avoid steamed fish. The restaurant looked like a movie set directed by someone with impeccable taste. A warm wooden ceiling, a chandelier glowing like a trapped sunset, crisp white tablecloths, and silverware polished enough to see your reflection. From the far corner, a jazz pianist played a slow tune soft enough to make every conversation sound intimate. Maya walked half a step ahead, gently squeezing Brandon's hand. "Deep breath. Relax," she whispered. "No fish." Brandon chuckled, nodding to the doorman. The dark blue suit made him look like he'd stepped straight off a magazine cover. Except what filled his mind wasn't investment strategies, but a frantic cheat sheet of pronunciation notes. Sin Chao, no fish. Chao la branjan, not dumb. Rot han han, not actually dropped. Cam on, not rice bran. Maya's parents were already seated. Her mother, hair silvered and neatly pinned, sharp brown eyes behind elegant glasses. Her father, straight-backed, pianist's hands resting on a fan-folded napkin. They both stood as the couple approached. Brandon bowed exactly 15 degrees and smiled politely. "Sin Chao." Mrs. Tran raised an eyebrow, then nodded. Mr. Tran smiled stiffly. Maya pressed her lips together to keep from laughing. Perfect, she murmured under her breath in English. No fish. Chowla. Branja. He stopped, inhaled, corrected himself. Brandon. Rot. Han. Mrs. Tran's lips curved in a restrained smile. You know a few words. That's cute. Then she turned to her husband and switched to the island dialect, her voice flowing like rippling water against a boat. Brandon caught only the rhythm, not the meaning. A waiter poured water. The first course arrived, pumpkin soup with sour cream and a sprinkle of nutmeg. Brandon lifted his spoon carefully, breathing evenly. Everything seemed to be going perfectly, almost too perfectly. Mrs. Tran leaned toward her husband again, continuing in the dialect. Her voice was soft but edged, like a knife slicing fruit. Occasionally, her eyes flicked toward Brandon, calm yet assessing. He smiled mechanically. Maya leaned closer, whispering, They said the soup's nice? Brandon nodded, swallowing. It really was nice, smooth with a faint touch of cinnamon. But those eyes didn't look like they were talking about soup. They carried that quiet appraisal everyone knows. Who is this man? Not hostile, just measuring. Tell them what you do, Mr. Tran said in English, his tone warm but curious. Brandon opened his mouth, but Maya jumped in. He invests in renewable energy. Invests? Mrs. Tran asked. Isn't that a risky business? But good for the planet, Brandon said. I believe in green growth. He almost started explaining smart grids, but caught himself. Don't bring the boardroom to the dinner table. Mrs. Tran nodded and switched back to dialect. The rhythm quickened. Brandon caught a few repeating sounds, one that resembled late, another like safe. He sipped his water, set the glass down too lightly, then picked it up again just to have something to do with his hands. Maya smiled. They're asking if you think the city looks beautiful tonight. Beautiful, Brandon said. Very beautiful. A small anecdote smoothed things over. Mr. Tran told a story from his youth on the island, how he played piano in a seaside bar and met Maya's mother, then a ferry ticket clerk who miscalculated his fare because she was distracted by the music. Practical love, he said, but never without melody. Brandon laughed genuinely for the first time, breathing easier. He added a phrase he'd practiced. Come on, then stopped before blurting the imaginary word gao, rice bran. The main course came. Mrs. Tran complimented the wine, and soon the men found common ground discussing an island author who wrote about the sea and storm-resistant palm trees. It felt like the dinner had finally found its rhythm. However, the dialect conversation soon grew longer again. Mrs. Tran lowered her voice, speaking in lengthier bursts, glancing between Maya and Brandon. Mr. Tran nodded or frowned, his finger tapping an unconscious rhythm on his glass. Brandon heard one phrase repeated, paired with that same measuring gaze. Though Maya kept smiling, still translating breezily, Mom says the sauce is good. Something old and tight inside him stirred. She says the sauce is good, but why does it sound like an audit report? He smiled again, jaw tightening, his hands flexed beneath the table. Talk about music, about books, about the sea. Everything flowed, except for those words in another language, like a quiet undertow, not loud, but pulling. Tell them about your cafe, Mr. Tran said, eyes softening when he heard that his daughter had once bought a second-hand milk frother from a flea market and painted a sign. Coffee fixes every bug. Maya grinned, even emotional ones sometimes. What about financial bugs? Mrs. Tran asked with a teasing glint. Those too, Maya said, glancing at Brandon. I have a regular who drinks 3 cups every morning. The table laughed. The moment lightened. Then came more dialect, gentle as rain on a tin roof. This time Brandon heard words that sounded like fast and family. Mrs. Tran looked straight at him while saying them. Her tone carried another kind of measurement. Not about soup or jazz, but about stability. Maya's foot brushed his under the table. Steady, grounding. She leaned in and translated succinctly. Mom says, you're very polite. Please tell her thank you, Brandon said sincerely. But in his eyes, a spark of unease flared and died. like steel striking stone. Dessert arrived. Creme brulee with a glassy caramel top. Mrs. Tran tapped her spoon. The sharp crack sliced the silence. She said something long to Maya, still watching Brandon. Mr. Tran nodded slowly as though weighing a proposal. Out of habit, Brandon tried reading their lips, an utterly useless skill in a language he didn't know. Maya smiled faintly. Mom says, the chef has good hands tonight. She laughed, but the sound caught in her throat, thin and rough. Brandon heard it, like a string pulled too tight. He looked at her. She looked back, brown eyes reassuring. It's okay, trust me. I'll excuse myself for a minute, Brandon said after a sip of espresso. Just washing up. The oldest excuse in the world. Maya nodded, squeezing his hand under the table. A brief anchoring touch. I've got this. I can translate. I'm here. The hallway to the back was cool and smelled faintly of mint from a diffuser. Brandon leaned against the paneled wall, exhaling slowly. Don't react to old wounds, he told himself. Don't turn every unfamiliar word into a threat. Soft footsteps approached. A young waitress stopped a few feet away. Black and white uniform, neatly tied hair, hesitant eyes. Her name tag read, Tessa. Excuse me, she said quietly, glancing toward the dining room as if afraid to be seen. I'm not sure if I should say something. Brandon straightened, polite but alert. Is something wrong? Tessa swallowed, then lowered her voice to barely a whisper. I'm sorry, but I understand what they're saying. The hallway behind the restaurant was as cool as a luxury refrigerator. The mint scent from the diffuser blended with the aroma of freshly baked butter drifting in from the kitchen. Brandon stood straight, hands in pockets, trying to steady his heartbeat back to the smooth jazz rhythm inside the dining room. Not the pounding drum beat from a corporate crisis meeting. The young waitress glanced nervously toward the door, as if afraid of being caught. Her small name tag read Tessa. Her voice dropped low, just enough for the two of them. I'm sorry. I understand what they're saying. Brandon froze for a beat, feeling an invisible door creak open. He nodded, silently inviting her to go on. Tessa swallowed hard, clutching her tray to keep from shaking. They're speaking the language of the island where I grew up. They were talking about how she should marry you soon, before you realize she's not from the same class. She looked him squarely in the eye. They called you a big fish. The words fell to the floor like a dropped silver spoon. Brandon couldn't react fast enough. The phrase big fish expanded in his mind like a neon tabloid headline, blinking bright and crude. Another corner of his brain whispered mockingly, Sin Chow, no fish. The joke from before? Now the fish was real, and it was the big one. Tessa spoke quickly, as if afraid she'd lose her nerve. I don't want to meddle in family matters. However, I've seen similar situations before. People calculate. People try to protect their children's security. And someone like you, she hesitated, can be misunderstood. Brandon's throat felt dry as a cookie without milk. Thank you for telling me. Tessa nodded, stepped back half a pace. I just thought you should know. I'm sorry if I made things worse. Then she turned and slipped through the kitchen's swinging door, leaving behind the cool scent of mint and a sentence that burned like chili. Brandon stood there for 3 more seconds to collect his face. He inhaled deeply, then exhaled through the polite smile number. 3, the one reserved for tricky shareholder questions. Stay calm, he told himself. Don't react to old scars. Trust the person in front of you. Don't trust ghosts. He returned to the table. The golden lights were still beautiful. The jazz still flowed like honey. Maya's mother's creme brulee still cracked perfectly under the spoon. But the air had changed. Or maybe he had. Maya noticed right away. You okay? Her voice touched him like a warm towel. Brandon forced a smile. Fine, like espresso with salt. Trying to joke. Trying to pull the evening back into their usual rom-com rhythm. Maya's eyes flickered with amusement, but it didn't last. Maya's mother switched to English, asking about his favorite wine, then slid back into the island language with her husband. Brandon caught the same phrases again. The ones Tessa had said meant fast and safe. He tightened his napkin slightly on his lap, then immediately loosened it to avoid creases. A weird, calming habit. "Brandon?" Maya's father asked. "Do you play any instruments?" "The contract violin," Brandon replied, then corrected himself. "I mean, I don't play, I listen." The table chuckled politely. Everything seemed fine on the surface, yet beneath it, an undertow was building. The waiter brought hot tea. Steam rose, thin and fragile, like a whisper. "Don't rush. Don't assume." Brandon set the cup down and turned to Maya, lowering his voice. "Can I ask you something?" Maya nodded, eyes open and steady. "Go ahead." Brandon looked at her for a beat, choosing words as carefully as picking the right microchip. "When your parents speak in their language, what are they talking about?" Maya hesitated for a split second, then smiled. The kind of reflex meant to keep the peace. "They said the fish tonight is fresh." "Fish?" Of course, it was fish. Brandon nodded, smiling appropriately. But a part of him, the part that had seen evaluating stares before, that had heard polite words masking calculations, that had paid dearly for being loved for the wrong reasons, stirred restlessly. He tried again, gently. "I just thought it sounded like they were worried about your future. About stability." Maya set her cup down. The saucer clinked softly. "All parents talk like that." She tilted her head. "Everything's fine." Brandon wanted to believe her. God, he wanted to. "Then, what's big fish?" he asked quietly. "Did someone just say that?" Maya froze, only for a blink, but it was enough. Then she smiled, grabbed a napkin, and quickly doodled a round little fish wearing a crown. "Big fish is what we call customers who tip too generously," she teased, trying to turn it into a joke. Brandon looked at the drawing, then at her. He heard the piano shift into a lower key. He heard her mother's spoon crack another layer of caramel. He heard his own breathing, just slightly off rhythm. "I just want," he said softly, "to hear it from you. If there's something I should know, please let me know. Don't let language stand between us." Maya pressed her lips together, eyes briefly weary. "You think I'm hiding something from you?" Her voice was gentle, but there were thorns beneath it. "I think," Brandon paused, searching for words. "I think I'm scared. Because I don't understand. And because I'm haunted by the past." Maya watched him for a few seconds, then turned to her mother and spoke a short sentence in the island language. Her mother replied at length, eyes still on Brandon. Her father leaned back, arms crossed, silent but listening. Brandon felt the glass wall between them thicken by 0.5 millimeter. The waiter placed the check neatly at the edge of the table. A polite, invisible gesture, but it felt like a paperclip closing the chapter. Maya's mother thanked him in English, tore a membership card in half, and left one piece with the bill. She turned to Brandon with a crisp smile. "Tonight was, interesting." "An honor, ma'am," Brandon replied flawlessly, though he didn't feel a single word land anywhere. Maya slid her chair closer to him, voice barely above a whisper. "Let's go get some air?" She was trying to save the evening. And them. Brandon nodded. They said polite goodbyes, promising to call later. No cheerful hugs, no warm farewells. Just formal nods, proper manners, napkins folded into perfect fans. The hallway still smelled of mint. The cream-colored door swung open, letting the night air rush in, cool, tinged with the scent of old rain. Cars passed on the avenue like distant waves. They stood under the awning. Silence stretched, longer than usual. Brandon spoke first, keeping his voice steady. His, not the voice of his old wounds. "Can you tell me the truth? What did they say about me? About us?" Maya met his eyes. There was pride, exhaustion from a night spent translating between worlds, and a tiny fear that everything could unravel over a few words. She drew a breath, then gave the safest answer in the world. "It's nothing, Brandon." The words, "it's nothing," fell lightly but carried the weight of an iceberg, enough to shift a ship's course. Brandon nodded, polite smile, "No." 3 returned, a coat that didn't quite fit. "Okay," he said, "if you say so." Maya turned slightly away, inhaling. "I just wanted tonight to be easy. Can we talk later?" A gust of wind caught her hair tie, fluttering it like a small flag. Inside, the jazz changed to a slower tune. Somewhere behind the glass, Tessa passed briefly, then disappeared. Brandon slid his hands into his pockets. "I understand." But within that word, understand, was a trace of salt. Just as he joked earlier, espresso with salt. And just like that, the air between them collapsed. Not with noise or drama, but the quiet precision of a street sinking after too much rain. Silent, neat, inevitable. Rain stitched the sky in silver threads. The warm glow from the restaurant spilled onto the wet sidewalk, breaking into golden fragments across the puddles. Behind them, the door had closed, taking with it the sound of jazz and the smell of butter and wine. Out here, there was only rain, and 2 uneven breaths that refused to steady. Brandon looked at Maya, his voice taut, low, strung tight as a wire. "Do you know what they said about me?" Maya nodded, her dark eyes clouded with worry. "Brandon, it's old-fashioned thinking. They said words like stable, safe, and different class." I cut my mother off. I changed the subject. Music, food, anything to stop those words from landing right in front of you. Brandon's lips tightened. "I know what they said." Tessa, the waitress, understood their language. She told me, "Marry early. Big fish." Maya froze for half a heartbeat. "I won't deny it." They used words I hate, but I didn't agree. I just didn't translate them at the table, because translating them right there would have blown everything apart. You'd feel humiliated, I'd be ashamed, and she swallowed, they'd close the door forever. I wanted to stop the storm right there and talk it through later, with you and then with them. Brandon let out a dry laugh, brittle as glass. So I sat there hearing the soup's nice, while their eyes measured me like an investment report. You changed the subject. In my head, that sounded like silent consent. Maya shook her head sharply, rain flicking off her hair. "No, my silence was the only way to protect you, to keep you from being hurt right in front of them. When my mother said fast, I looked straight at her. When my father said stable, I froze. I was defending you in the language I was raised with. Block, deflect, steer to safety." Brandon looked down at his soaked shoes, then up again, eyes fogged with a different kind of rain. The past flooded in like a train he couldn't stop. Another dinner, years ago, a woman's hand holding his until she learned the name Evans. Another room filled with laughter too polite, saying stability like syrup. Another text that began with, "I truly appreciate you," and ended with a bank account number. His voice came out raw. "I've been in rooms like that before. I used to be my last name, not myself. When you didn't translate, I heard the same noise again. Keep him fast. He's safe. I can't unhear it." Maya stepped closer, her hand trembling halfway before stopping in the air. "Look at me, Brandon. I'm not an Evans. I don't need your name. I chose you. The man in the hoodie, drinking $2 coffee, writing on napkins. I stood against them, just not in the way you wanted. Can't you trust me? Just this once?" Brandon shut his eyes for a second, as if trying to power off all the memories, then reopened into a world without filters. But when he did, the filter was still there, cold, clear, convincing. "I can't," he said slowly, each word pried out like it hurt. "Not because of you, because of me. I don't know how to stop hearing through the scars." Maya drew in a breath, voice trembling but steady. "So no matter what I say, you'll still see me standing on their side, just because I stayed quiet to keep you from bleeding in public." Brandon bit his lip, rain dripping from his lashes. "I know this isn't fair to you, but I can't believe it right now. Not tonight." He shook his head, the honesty cutting sharper than cruelty. "I'm afraid, and that fear is bigger than you." A taxi pulled up, its headlights slicing twin paths through the rain. The driver rolled down the window. "Need a ride, folks?" Maya opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her lips trembled once, then held still, like a straight line drawn too hard. "If you need time, I'll wait," she said softly. "But don't mistake your fear for the truth." Brandon looked at her for a long moment, then he turned away. Maybe because one more second of looking would undo everything his fear had just decided. "This is where we stop," he said quietly, but the rain wasn't loud enough to hide it. "I'm sorry." Maya nodded once. Not in agreement, but in acknowledgement. "I understand," she said, and inside that word understand was a tiny fracture. Brandon raised his hand for the cab. The door opened with a click. Before stepping in, he turned back, almost touched her hand, and stopped halfway. "I wish I were someone else." "I wish tonight didn't have a past," Maya replied, smiling a thread-thin smile that broke as soon as it appeared. He slid into the back seat. The door shut. The taxi pulled away, tires hissing through puddles like someone scribbling a jagged full stop across the street. Maya stayed there in the rain, arms wrapped around her elbows, heart beating in time with the wipers fading into the distance. She didn't cry right away. Maybe because the rain was doing it for her, or maybe because sometimes silence weighs more than sobs. She tilted her face upward, letting the drops sting her eyelids, to make sure the burning was real. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a message from her mother. "Are you home yet?" Maya locked the screen. No reply. Instead, she opened her notes app and typed 3 lines. "Not translating does not equal agreeing. Silence has its own grammar." When the one you love listens through scars, every language turns into a blade. She took a deep breath and stepped out from under the awning, walking against the wind and rain. Each step shattered another piece of reflected streetlight. Somewhere down the line, this pain would turn into verse in another brown notebook. But tonight it was still prose, raw, uneven, and wet. They parted that same rainy night. No, we'll talk later. No, let's figure it out tomorrow. Just 2 sides. One, a woman who defended him by staying silent. The other, a man who could no longer hear anything but the ghosts of his past. And Brooklyn kept raining, as if the city, too, understood that untranslatable language called losing each other. 5 months passed, longer than the time they'd ever spent together. No messages, no good mornings, no cappuccinos with cinnamon. Brandon Evans, the man who could close a $100 million deal in 3 lines of email, couldn't seem to close a deal with himself. He buried himself in work, a luxurious excuse. Meetings, signatures, investments, new projects. Everyone who saw him said the same thing. "Mr. Evans, you look great." Only the bathroom mirror knew he'd mastered smiling without letting it reach his eyes. His friends tried to pull him out, set up VIP blind dates even. The first woman was an interior designer who spoke entirely in terms of energy flow and feng shui. The second was a lawyer who asked about prenuptial agreements right after the salad course. The third laughed exactly like Maya, about 70% similar, and he ended up apologizing for staring too long. That night, he went home and opened the kitchen cabinet. The porcelain mug printed with coffee and heart still sat on the shelf, the one Maya had given him for his birthday, used only once. He brushed his fingers across the word heart, smiled faintly. Guess hearts aren't as durable as porcelain. Monday morning, the New York sun was lazy, golden, carrying a hint of blossoms, the kind of May sunlight that made everything look gentler than it really was. Brandon drove to work. The radio was playing "Can't Help Falling in Love," and the universe, in its infinite sense of irony, timed the song perfectly with a red light. Green. He turned the corner, and his eyes caught a freshly painted cream-colored sign with a soft handwritten font. Maya's Coffee and Heart. His heart skipped a beat. He blinked, thinking he'd misread it. But no, the small heart logo beneath the name held a steaming cappuccino cup. Brandon laughed under his breath, a mix of disbelief and longing. Small world, or maybe fate just has GPS. He pulled over. The breeze carried the smell of freshly roasted beans and the clink of wind chimes. He sat there, hands resting on the steering wheel, staring through the glass. A wooden sign hung on the door. Open. Brewing with love since 3 months ago. 3 months, he murmured. So she opened it after we broke up. A soft gust lifted the edge of his shirt sleeve. He chuckled, shaking his head. That girl still chooses heart over logic. He told himself to drive away. Honestly, he did. He even signaled left and pressed lightly on the gas. But then the scent of coffee hit him, warm and sweet, like a memory that smelled faintly of cinnamon. In his head, Maya's voice surfaced from some long-sealed corner. Try the cappuccino with cinnamon. It's for people stressed about money or love. Damn it, that voice still sounded the same. He laughed to himself, half amused, half aching. Still stressed about love, Maya. He buttoned his shirt collar and turned off the engine. His hand hovered over the door handle. Should he go in? What if she had someone now? What if she didn't want to see him? What if he was just disturbing a person who'd already moved on? An old lady walked past, eyeing him with a knowing smile. You planning to go in, she said, or just drink coffee with your eyes? Brandon laughed. I'm not sure the owner wants to see me. Try, she shrugged. If you don't, the coffee gets cold. And cold coffee's twice as bitter. He tilted his head, a piece of love advice disguised as barista logic. He took a deep breath. His heart beat fast, as if he were about to walk into the most important meeting of his life. His fingers touched the handle. Cool metal. He pushed the door gently. Ding ding. The little bell chimed, the exact same sound that 5 months couldn't erase. He froze on the threshold like someone stepping through a time portal. The place was small, warm, and filled with natural light. Cream-painted walls, low-hanging lamps, bookshelves packed with old paperbacks, wooden tables arranged in gentle disarray. Behind the counter, a new espresso machine gleamed like a fresh start. Inside Maya's coffee and heart, the air smelled of freshly ground beans and warm pastries. Morning light filtered through the glass window, glinting off tiny flower vases on each table. The laughter of children rang like wind chimes. Brandon stood at the door, not quite stepping in. He froze at the sight before him, something that tugged at him in a place he couldn't name. In the corner, a woman in a worn coat was trying to keep her 3 children still. They were thin, their clothes faded, but their eyes gleamed at the sight of pastries on the counter. The mother hesitated, took out her wallet, and counted a few crumpled bills before whispering to Maya. Excuse me, 3 small hot coffees and 2 pastries, please. That's all we can afford. Maya smiled. That same smile Brandon knew too well, the one that could soften the whole world. Of course, she said, already moving her hands with practiced ease. But today's pastries are special, so everyone gets a bonus piece. New policy. The woman looked up, startled. Really? But Maya set the plate down gently, as if afraid to break the woman's dignity. It's okay. Today is free pastry day for anyone who needs a smile. You came on the right day. The children let out soft cheers. The youngest turned to his mother, whispering, Mom, she's nice, like in the stories. Maya crouched down, brushing his hair affectionately. And you're the real main character, because you remembered to say thank you. Brandon stood still. The scene, simple, quiet, struck deeper than any speech he'd ever given. The woman he'd once doubted was now giving away the only thing she had, kindness that needed no translation. His chest tightened. Regret and warmth tangled together. In his world, everything had a price. Every smile came with a clause. But here she was, unchanged, giving freely, as if goodness were its own currency. The mother thanked her repeatedly and led the children out. The door opened. The bell chimed softly, and as the door swung shut, Maya turned. Just as her eyes met Brandon's, they both froze. Between them, the cafe fell silent. Only the clock's faint ticking filled the air. Maya blinked, as if she couldn't quite trust the sight of the man standing there. Brandon smiled, faint, uncertain, his heart skipping a beat. Hi, he said, voice husky but warm. I was just passing by. Right, Maya said, setting the milk jug down. You always pass by places that smell like cinnamon? Brandon laughed quietly, bowing his head. Seems that way. She tilted her head, smiling, calm, composed, a kind of peace that hurt to look at. A silence lingered before she said softly, "The coffee here still has cinnamon. Cures stress, financial and emotional." The same line she'd said the day they met, only this time, without the joke. Brandon looked at her. Memories flooded in. Laughter from another cafe, the rain-soaked goodbye, the words, "I can't trust you." They echoed, sharp and old. He began but stopped, afraid to shatter the fragile quiet between them. "I'd like a cappuccino." "With cinnamon?" Maya nodded once. No questions. She turned away, each movement careful, deliberate, pressing buttons, steaming milk, dusting cinnamon. Every gesture had a rhythm, as if she were brewing not just coffee, but the time and distance between them. Brandon watched, fingers tightening on the edge of the table. He remembered sitting in that corner seat, watching her lean over the milk froth, light glinting off her hair. Everything had once been simple, until he'd made it complicated. She set the cup down in front of him. No words, just a soft push toward him. He noticed, near the rim, a crooked cinnamon heart. "Your coffee," he said quietly, "still looks beautiful." "It does," she replied, "but it tastes different now. I add a bit more bitterness, for balance." They both laughed softly. Brandon took his old seat. After a moment's hesitation, Maya sat across from him. Neither spoke. The sound of a spoon stirring blended with the clock's steady tick, a quiet, familiar duet. "How long have you been open?" he asked. 3 months. "You did all this yourself?" "Mostly. Some friends helped. It's small, but it's warm." He nodded, looking around. On the wall, a chalkboard sign read, "Coffee cures everything, except missing someone." "That one's true," he murmured. Maya smiled faintly. "Sometimes, though, coffee helps people stay awake enough to remember the right way." He fell silent. Her words slipped into the one part of him still bruised. He breathed in cinnamon, steam, forgiveness, the scent he once thought he'd lost. She rested her chin on her hand. "How have you been these months?" he answered honestly. "Fine, on paper. My heart, though, still in debt." Maya chuckled gently but sadly. "We don't allow credit here," he smiled. "Can I pay in apologies instead?" "Depends," she said softly. "Are they real?" He looked at her. The apology had been waiting for months, but saying it felt like unlocking an old wound. He drew a long breath. "I was wrong for letting the past speak for you." Maya lowered her eyes. She didn't answer right away, only turned her cup slowly in her hands. The steam curled between them, soft as a shared breath. "Thank you," she said at last, her voice almost a whisper, "for finally listening, with your heart this time." They stayed there for a long while without needing more words. Only the scent of coffee, the warmth of cinnamon, and the quiet hum of memories between two cooling cups. On the wall clock, the second hand clicked forward like the heartbeat of something that had just come back to life. Night settled softly over Brooklyn. Apartment windows spilled warm yellow light onto the rain-damp streets. Brandon stood in front of Maya's coffee and heart. The cafe lights were off. Only a faint glow came from the small apartment upstairs. He took a deep breath, holding a brown paper-wrapped box of cinnamon cookies, then knocked 3 times. The door opened. Maya, hair loose, wearing a soft gray sweater, tilted her head and smiled. "Dropping by after closing hours again?" "I come bearing a bribe." He lifted the box. "In your language, does cinnamon cookies mean forgive me?" She laughed, stepping aside. "Come in, before you catch a cold and blame the weather again." Inside, the apartment was small but warm. The faint scent of coffee and cinnamon lingered in the air. On the table sat a few newspapers, an old island novel, and a half-burned candle. Maya poured him a cup of ginger tea and took the chair across from him. "You still read the news this late?" Brandon asked, glancing at the headline, "Bridging Cultures in Modern Love." "I do," she said softly, eyes calm, "because I just finished translating the biggest conversation of my life." "With who?" "My parents," she said, then looked up at him. "I talk to them openly. They understand now. Where I'm from, people believe marriage should be stable more than romantic. But I believe in kindness. I told them if you love someone for their kindness, stability will follow. Brandon sat in silence, listening to every word like he might miss a note of music. And they agreed? Not exactly, she smiled. But they said, if you can make that man believe in love again, that's the best marriage you can have. He chuckled quietly, this time with real warmth behind it. I think, he paused, pretending to think deeply, Google Translate might have ruined our relationship. Maya burst out laughing, covering her mouth. Maybe it mistranslated I love you into marry me for my bank account. Yeah, and I'm sorry probably became the contract's canceled. Tragic. They both laughed softly at first, then louder until the sound filled the small room, bouncing off the walls and breaking months of silence. For the first time since everything fell apart, they laughed together and it didn't hurt. Maya's laughter faded into a quiet smile. Brandon, she said softly. I know you still blame yourself for the past, but we all have a language that's hurt someone, don't we? He nodded slowly. I just wish I'd stayed silent longer. Maybe listened with my heart instead of my fear. And I, she murmured, wish I'd been brave enough to translate everything, even the hard sentences. Because if I had, maybe you'd have known I was on your side. He exhaled, looking down at his hands, fingers locked together. I'm sorry. For what? For not trusting you. For letting someone else's ghost rewrite our story. Maya smiled through misty eyes. Do you trust me now? I do, he said firmly. Enough to relearn everything. Grammar, vocabulary, and the entire language of you. He leaned forward. Their lips met, softly at first, then deeper, until neither could tell where apology ended and forgiveness began. Months of distance, sleepless nights, and unsent words melted into a kiss, both trembling and sure. Maya said nothing. She simply rested her hand over his heart, feeling its unsteady rhythm, then drew him closer. Outside, the rain had stopped. The city held its breath, and all that remained was the sound of two people breathing in sync. That night, no more words were needed. Love was translated anew, through warmth, through forgiveness, through the simple touch of two souls who had once lost each other in language and found each other again in silence. When dawn crept quietly through the window, Brandon brushed a strand of hair from her shoulder and whispered, in her island tongue, the one he'd once butchered, I missed you. Maya laughed softly, eyes still closed. This time, you translated it right. 1 year later. Spring arrived early that year, carrying a hint of cinnamon in the breeze and sunlight warm enough to soften every corner of Brooklyn. Inside Coffee and Heart, the tables had been pushed aside, ribbons of cream and white wound around jars of baby's breath. On the window, fresh chalk letters glowed under the sun. Today's special. Love, freshly brewed. It was their wedding day. Brandon Evans and Maya Lannister. No orchestra, no champagne towers, no sweeping gown. Just their cafe, a few dozen close friends, the smell of cappuccino, and laughter floating between the walls. Maya wore a simple white dress, holding a small bouquet woven from dried cinnamon sticks and coffee beans. Brandon wore a charcoal vest. His hair was slightly messy, perhaps on purpose. He joked, I chose this color so no one will notice if I spill coffee on it. The wedding menu was as unconventional as the couple. Cappuccinos, charity sandwiches, and a cake shaped like a coffee machine, designed by Maya and financed by what Brandon called a 100% emotional investment. Friends burst into laughter when the couple cut the cake using a milk frother spoon instead of a knife. No one was surprised. Everyone knew these were two people who believed love should be brewed, not poured. In one corner, Maya's parents sat side by side, their faces soft, eyes glowing. After everything, they finally understood their daughter. That happiness wasn't measured by the thickness of a wallet, but by the calm that comes from walking in the same direction. After the rings were exchanged, Maya's mother approached Brandon with a small box. Inside was a white porcelain cup, engraved with a single word in her native language, trust. Brandon took it with both hands, eyes glistening. He bowed slightly, trying to pronounce it slowly, syllable by syllable. T, no, ta. The crowd erupted in laughter. Maya leaned against his shoulder, laughing through tears. "Congratulations," she whispered. "You just told my mother you're a bowl of cold soup." Her parents roared with laughter. Brandon blushed, then joined in his most unguarded smile since the engagement. The celebration flowed on with soft music. Between the tables and the aroma of coffee, Maya rested her head on his shoulder and whispered, "You know, every time you try to say it right, I fall for you a little more. Because you never quit, even when you get it wrong." Brandon chuckled, murmuring back, "I'll keep getting it wrong, as long as I get the right person." "Still the wrong pronunciation," she teased, "but perfectly right emotion." Years passed. The city changed, but coffee and heart kept its warm cream tones and the same gentle doorbell chime. Brandon is still a millionaire, still running Evans Tech, and spends every morning before opening hours wiping tables, polishing cups, and brewing the first coffee for their regulars. People would ask, "Mr. Evans, don't you mind doing the hands-on work?" He'd smile and say, "Coffee reminds me that every big thing starts with something small." Maya, with her loose hair and bright smile, remained exactly the same. She had one rule: a small reserved table for anyone who doesn't have enough money but needs a warm cup. That morning, a little girl walked in, wearing patched clothes, her fingers clutching a few coins. I'd like a small cup," she said shyly, "but I'm short $2. Maya bent down, smiling, and placed a full cup on the counter, along with a tiny pastry tied with a ribbon. "Coffee here is priced in kindness, not money," she said. From the doorway, Brandon watched unnoticed. She didn't know he was standing there, just like he once stood watching her years ago, in a cafe on a rainy morning. He walked up, slipped an arm around her waist, and whispered into her ear, his voice low, warm, and steady. "Turns out, we're richest when we can give and still feel full." Maya turned to look at him, sunlight catching their faces, reflected in the glass window. Outside, the wooden sign gleamed softly in the spring light, the words "coffee" and "heart" swaying gently in the breeze. And just beneath it, Maya had written something new in delicate white chalk, her smile still lingering as she did. "Translated with love." Because after everything they had learned, love, when truly heard, always means the right thing, even when it's said in the wrong accent.